Okay, hello Cloud Gurus and welcome to this lecture about the Cloud Shell and editor included in the GCP console. First, let's start with what it is. Google Cloud Shell provides you with command line access to your cloud resources directly from your browser. You can easily manage your projects and resources without having to install the Google Cloud SDK or other tools on your system. With Cloud Shell, the Cloud SDK gcloud command line tool and other utilities you need are always available, up-to-date, and fully authenticated when you need them. So let's take a look at some of the highlights. One of the big ones is that you can access this Cloud Shell command line from any browser anywhere with an internet connection. This means that you don't need a local terminal program running on the computer you're using. Now, if you've ever tried to do any development on a Chromebook, you'll immediately realize the value of this. And if you've ever had to use PuTTY on a Windows machine, you'll probably also be celebrating. Now, another nice thing about this, though, is that not only do you escape having to run a program on your local machine, you also escape having to manage those keys manually. Of course, if you've used PuTTY, you'll know that that's particularly annoying because it uses a different key format, but even SSHing from your local machine can be a bit of a pain sometimes. So it's nice that Cloud Shell can do some automatic management of SSH keys for you. Another nice thing about Cloud Shell is that it gives you 5 GB of persistent storage, which means that if you save something in one web session and then come back to it later, it'll still be there. You can just pick up where you left off. And in terms of what you might be doing in this shell, it's good to know that it has easy access to a whole bunch of pre-installed tools. Tools like gcloud, BQ, and kubectl to interact with resources in GCP, or different programming language tools like Node, Python, and Ruby. Now, when you are using these tools to interact with GCP, it's nice that they're pre-authorized, which means you have to jump through fewer hoops to get things done, and you don't have to worry about continually reinstalling these things because they're always up to date every time you connect to Cloud Shell. Now, one last thing to mention before we move on is that if you do run something in this Cloud Shell, maybe like run a Node app or something, you can get a URL so that you can preview that web app connecting directly from your local machine to that Cloud Shell. But that's something that'll probably make more sense to you when you see it happen and do it for yourself. So let's jump into the lab. To start this lab, log into the GCP console with your non-administrative account. And pay attention when you're logging in, because if you don't get prompted for two-factor authentication, then you should definitely go and set that up right now. Alright, I'll see you in the console. Alright, so here we are in the console, and we're logged in as the GCP user account. Now, of course, this is a lab about running Cloud Shell, so we're going to find and press the button that says Activate Google Cloud Shell. Now, this confirmation screen shows a neat little animation of some of the things you can do in Cloud Shell, and feel free to watch what it does, maybe even canceling and restarting it a few times so you can see what happens at each step. But for now, I'm just going to start Cloud Shell. Now, by default, Cloud Shell starts in this split window view at the bottom of the screen, and you can feel free to leave it that way if you want, but I'm going to press this button over here to pop it up into its own tab. I feel like this can make it a bit easier to work with, especially for recording, so I'll be doing this throughout the course. Now, the first thing I want to point out is that this Cloud Shell has automatically connected to the My User project that we've created. Now, so far, this GCP user account only has access to one project. But if we want to switch to a different project later, we'll use the gcloud config set project command. Now, before we start doing stuff, I want to take a look at this menu. This lets us do things like upload and download files, restart the Cloud Shell machine, and get some information about Cloud Shell. But you might also be able to enable boost mode like I can here. And when you do that, you can restart Cloud Shell to use a more powerful machine. Well, why not, right? So let's do that now. Now, this definitely can take a bit of time. Alright, boost mode activated! Now, it might not look any different, but it should be faster now. Alright, well, this is just a normal Linux machine. Now, I'm just going to clear the screen here, which is something that I'll do pretty often so that you can keep focusing close to the top of the shell instead of having to try and figure out where I'm typing now. Now, if we print the working directory to see where we start out, we can see that we're in the home directory for this user. And if we do something like move to the parent directory, we can always get back to that home directory by just typing cd space and a tilde. And as you can see, this default prompt is also telling us which directory we're currently in. Now when we start our Cloud Shell, there really isn't all that much there. Just this README file. Well, plus a few hidden files, but for now, let's just pay attention to this. Now if we want to see what this file says, we can just cat it. But thankfully, after the capital R, I can just hit Tab to finish the rest of the file name. And here we see some interesting information. In particular, the VM that we're using right now is ephemeral, so we shouldn't rely on it sticking around. That said, the home directory that we're using will persist across sessions, so we have to make sure that everything is saved here, or I guess somewhere else, if we care about keeping it. Now this also points us to a few interesting Cloud Shell extras, like DL file name allowing us to download that particular file. So let's test that out right now. Do I want to download this file? Yes. That just triggers the normal browser download functionality. But it's quite convenient, and we'll want to remember that for later. But now I want to show you something else. I want you to get the lab files for this course. So to do that, start in this home directory and type git clone https://github.com/acloudguru/cloud-engineer.git. Now you don't actually have to type out that entire address. You can go to the resources panel, find this link, right-click on it and say copy link address, and then just paste that in here. In any case, I'm going to grab these files now, and we'll see that it's created a new directory for us. Let's navigate into that directory with a cd space gcp-cloud-engineer. Now inside there's another folder called cloud-shell-hello, so let's go into that directory as well. Now you can feel free to do both of these in one step if you want. This directory has a couple of source files for Node.js applications, and so we're just going to check that out now. If we run node space hello.js, it tells us that it's running an application on its local host address on port 8080. But if we try navigating to that address, we'll see that it doesn't work. And that's of course because the local host for this browser is different than the local host for the Cloud Shell. What we need to do here is to go to this web preview. When we drop down this menu, we see that we can preview what's running on port 8080. So if I click that, it opens up a new tab and connects to that app. Here we see that we get an AppSpot URL to connect us through to the application that we're running in our Cloud Shell. So let's go and take a look at the source code of this application. To do that, we could definitely look at stuff in the terminal, but we can also open up the Cloud Shell code editor with this little button here. Now the file that we were running was this hello.js, and we can see here that it was set to run on port 8080 and say, "Hello, Cloud Gurus." Now this code editor is actually quite helpful, including even things like syntax highlighting and warnings. And of course, like any good editor, we can make changes to this file, save it with Command S, or save in the menu. And then what should happen when we reload this? Well, actually, nothing should happen yet, and that's because what we ran over here was Node, and Node does not automatically reload source files when they change. So if we click down on the bottom, we can hit Ctrl-C to exit the program, and this time we'll run nodemon instead. Nodemon is another tool that comes pre-installed in Cloud Shell. So now if we refresh, even though it's a different application, it's still connecting through to the same port on Cloud Shell, so it gets the response from the new application. Now if we make some more changes, we see that nodemon has done its job. Alright, let's close this editor for now. Click down here at the bottom, Ctrl-C to stop nodemon and node, and then clear the screen. Next, let's use the diff tool to see what the difference is between this hello.js file and this HTML hello.js file. Here we see that there are changes to which port is being used, the message that's being returned, and the content type as well. So if we run nodemon on this HTML hello, it'll start running the app on a different port than we were using before. So if we refresh the browser on port 8080, we get nothing. What we need to do now is to go back to this web preview menu and change the port. We say 8081, change and preview. And now we see what's running there. Alright, I hope this has been a useful introduction to the Cloud Shell so you get a sense for what you can do here and see how useful this can be. If you have any questions for me, please let me know. If not, please feel free to move on to the next lecture. Thank you.